Hello and welcome back to the American Field Trip Podcast, the podcast that likes to stop at all of the wayside exhibits.
Facts. We are coming to you during a week when we thought we were going to be on the road for spring break, and then a series of unfortunate events kept us home.
A series of unfortunate illnesses.
Our house falling apart in small ways. And then David went to pick up our trailer. We have a little Airstream base camp, 20-footer that we do these trips in. It's been at the dealer getting a bunch of warranty repairs, and David went to pick it up. And they had not done those warranty repairs, despite telling us weeks ago that they were done.
That was fun.
So we're really glad that we didn't
home.
drive down. Like, our plan was to pick it up on our way to New Mexico. We're glad that we didn't end up doing that because we would have been upset.
That would have been awkward if we showed up geared up for a week-long road trip only to have to turn around and go back home.
It'd be really, really depressing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But mostly everybody got a stomach flu. And
so that too.
All the kids have
Which is a terrible thing to have in a trailer, whether it has its warranty repairs done or not. So
bad news.
Yes. So we're happy to be home, and hopefully we'll get that New Mexico trip done sometime in the next couple months.
Yeah, soon.
It's all the sites kind of in the north part of New Mexico, which is most of New Mexico sites. And they're at pretty high elevation. So maybe it'll be good because it was going to be a little bit chilly this week.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Blessing in disguise. Maybe it's for the best.
We're excited to share with you about those when we do go to them. But for now, we've got some scuttlebutt for you.
Yeah, we've been, scouring the national park news like we do. And a few interesting items to bring to y'all's attention. The first of which, check my notes here, fishermen of the world rejoice, or like fishermen of the greater Yellowstone area rejoice. Yellowstone National Park is opening up 2 areas for year-round fishing. Parts of the Madison River and parts of the Gardner River are going to be open year-round, starting, I believe, in the fall.
Okay.
So if you're, an angler, Yellowstone, very known for its fishing, really, really excellent fishing along the Yellowstone rivers.
So that Gardner River would be accessible from Gardner, Montana, from the north, where the road stays open.
I believe so. And
then the Madison.
I don't know the details, but it's
because most of the roads of Yellowstone are closed during the winter.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that's like snowmobile access for fishing or.
I don't know, but it would be
interesting.
If you are a winter fisherman, if you are fishing the rivers in the wintertime, which a lot of them, some of them don't freeze because they're warm.
Oh, I was going to say, is that ice fishing? That would probably be on a lake. So the river.
Yeah, on a river.
Okay. I don't know anything about fishing.
Yeah. All I know is they're going to be open year-round, and you should go check that out if you're a fisherman. Also, Mount Rainier is implementing a timed entry system, similar to some of the other more busy national parks.
Like Arches, Yosemite, Glacier.
Yep.
Zion.
Rainier is doing the same thing, and they are going to be doing it from March 24th to September 2nd. So basically for the season in which it's not snowy. And it's from the Paradise and the Sunrise entrances. And I believe the way that they're doing it is similar to some of the other parks where you sign up for a time to enter the park. And it's basically to just cut down on miles long lines at the entry. So you sign up for a time and then you go at your time and enter the park more quickly.
In general, with timed entry, if you arrive before 7 a.m., you're generally still allowed to come in. That's been
I don't know the details of Rainier, the system they're implementing, but that has been the case in I know Glacier when we last visited. It was timed entry basically during business hours. And
so
if you're going before or after.
If you have a last minute trip and you can you can go into the park in the evening or very early in the morning, you might still be able to get in if there are no spots open. Also, if you have a campground reservation, that
usually comes with an entry. Yeah. And generally, if you're willing to stay flexible, you can find a way into the park. If you call, show up, talk to people, sometimes reservations cancel.
Are you in favor of timed entry?
I am.
I think it's great.
I think timed entry is nice because The complaint is that it makes it harder to access the parks, which it does, but also without timed entry, I think it's even harder to access the parks because it's just mobbed. The timed entry, I think, lets you plan a little bit more. You do have to plan. You got to plan ahead a little bit more. But generally, it spreads the congestion out. At least that's what we've experienced.
Yeah. In general, I guess most of our ideal would be just to have like 4 other people at the park total, and you just go in and you're able to get a parking spot everywhere and do whatever you want.
Sure.
But since there are so many people, timed entry can be really, really helpful.
Yeah. And they generally, same thing with like permitting of hikes and stuff like that. It basically just means that they can preserve the good experience of visiting the national park by keeping it from getting super duper crowded.
And with hiking permits too, it's such a big safety issue.
Yeah,
getting into the park is not usually a safety issue, but some hikes that are very, very popular.
Yeah. Angel's Landing is the poster child for that one. That
Angel's Landing at Half Dome as well. Like those are dangerous.
Hikes that are dangerous if they're crowded.
If it gets crowded. So
yeah,
I'm big favor of that too.
Yeah. It's an imperfect system, but generally better than the alternative since everyone really likes national parks and seems like that's not changing anytime soon.
And the parks are iterating constantly on ways to handle all this visitation. So it's always a work in progress, and bless them for trying.
Yeah.
I appreciate them.
Last piece of news, which we'll probably be talking about more in weeks to come, is that National Park Week is coming up. National Park Week is the NPS is just a little holiday week that they have. They have special events, special things happen in the parks during that week. The couple of items that we wanted to highlight today is that free entry day, which is the day where there's no entrance fees in all national park sites, is on April 20th. So if you got a local national park thinking of making a trip, you could save a little cash, go on free entry day. That will be a busy day. Just note, a lot of other people are going to be wanting to go on that day.
It's also a Saturday, isn't it?
I think it is.
It's usually, 20,
They usually do it on a weekend. So you can go get into the park for free. But it's a super fun day. Lots of people in the parks.
And lots of events and activities.
Good vibes everywhere.
National Park Week usually always coincides with Earth Day.
Yep.
So that's like the timing of it.
It does.
So the first Saturday is free entry day. And then I think it goes for 9 days this year. And then April 27th is Junior Ranger Day.
National Junior Ranger Day.
So if you have kids, that's a great day to be in any park. But I would especially say look for historic sites around you, because on Junior Ranger Day, they will often do fun like reenactments or
totally
just like fun activities.
And a lot of those sites are ones that are like might typically be kind of boring for kids, but on Junior Ranger Day or during National Park Week, they might do extra cool activities that might be like highlights for kids. That might be super fun.
Yeah. So I would look for things like that. And we love National Park Week. Any excuse to celebrate the national parks.
Yeah. But that's about it for the news.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we have a question today. We are doing a reader question from Katrina UD. Is her Instagram handle. Long follower and supporter. Thanks. She says, generally, where do we stay near national parks when not camping or RVing? Hotels are hit or miss.
Hotels are hit or miss.
Yeah. And are expensive.
There may not be any good answer to this question.
Yeah. So we are going to talk a lot about this today, because one of the reasons that we invested in an RV / we had a bus before, we have a van, and is because of this issue. Because a lot of the time there is not, sometimes there are great like little entry towns that have cute places to stay.
There's some real gems.
That maybe have like locally owned hotels that can be fun. And hotels, like, it is what it is. For us, when we have to stay in a hotel, it's not our preference, but like if you don't have, you gotta sleep somewhere.
Yeah. I think we've had good luck when we haven't been camping or RVing and have been staying in hotels. I think that the best experiences we've had have been with like decent Airbnbs, depending upon where you are. Sometimes it's nicer to like rent a cabin or something locally instead of trying to stay like at a lodge in the park or trying to stay at like a motel in a gateway town. Sometimes you can find some Airbnb stuff. I mean, that's like the most basic piece of advice ever is like try Airbnb. But there is some good stuff. And sometimes there's really cool things. And I'm thinking of some of the more remote Alaska parks where, you know, a lodge might be wildly expensive, but also there might be, you know, some independent cabins and Airbnbs that you can rent. Some other things. I'm trying to think of other. I mean, some of the other remote cabins, like again, thinking of the Alaska parks where hotels may not be available. Sometimes there are cabins within the park to rent. I know, like Lake Clark is one of these that they have several public use cabins that you can rent. It's like a backcountry experience, but it is a cabin.
That's basically camping.
Yeah, but you're not in a tent. You do have like a cabin, and some of them are nice.
I would say to look for locally owned places if possible. You can look on Airbnb or one of those websites and then search for if the place you're looking at has like a name, like this is the Hideaway or whatever. Google that with the name of the park and see if you can find a booking site, just their personal booking site. I don't love Airbnb as a company. They also charge a lot of fee. Like you're going to end up paying more if you book through there. If you can find somebody's like personal booking site and you feel comfortable like booking with somebody directly and not going through a third party service, which like does have
there's some benefits to that,
like some security. But yeah, I would say if you want to support the local economy, the best way to do that would be to book directly through the place. Mm-hmm. Avoid like a third-party website like hotels.com or something like that. So if you Google around for places to stay and then look at their personal websites, it's, I think, the best way to find a hotel that you're going to be comfortable with. We really like staying at locally owned places. We like supporting local economies when we're in places if we can. And I think, you know, sometimes you'll have a cool experience, you know, meeting other travelers in that kind of situation or the people who live there. This is not something that we encounter a lot. So this is not like groundbreaking advice because we try to avoid hotels as much as we can.
Yeah. Mostly just for cost. It's expensive.
Yeah. But there are a lot of very cool places, to like glamping places, little cabins, things like that pop up around most national parks.
Especially the popular ones.
Yeah. I will also say that for very large parks, like Yellowstone, Yosemite, places like that where you have to drive quite a ways to get into the main part of the park, it's really worth figuring out when they release lodge rooms or little cabin rooms. They are not, in my experience, terribly more expensive than staying outside of the park. And I think it's definitely worth it to not spend so much time driving in and out. Like if your goal is to spend time in Yosemite Valley, you should really try to stay there at a concessionaire or park owned place because you're going to spend hours coming in and out. And then you're going to miss a lot of that like early morning stuff that's really nice in the park or the evening like sunset time, which is our favorite time in the park. You don't want to be driving during those times. So I would say if you can at all stay in the park, I would prioritize that.
Definitely.
And like spend more money on that aspect of it and cut other things.
And if you've had, we should do an episode sometime on like park concessionaires and services within the parks. Because if you haven't, it's worth some time when visiting one of the old, you know, like Glacier or Yellowstone or some of these big ones that have really old lodges and accommodations inside of them. It's worth staying at one of them sometime. They're not like luxury, but usually they're very historic. like the Old Faithful Inn or like the, Lake McDonald Lodge, like all of these.
They're so cute.
They're super cute. It's not like the nicest hotel you're ever going to stay in. They're usually priced a little bit at a premium just because of the location. But every time we've stayed there, it has been like a highlight of the trip because of the location that
They're
in.
always in such cool places.
The location is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's not like, they're usually run by a big company like Aramark or something that, again, we should do an episode about this, about who kind of does all of the services within these big parks. So it's a bit, industrial, like it's just big hospitality companies that run the whole thing. So it's not like a fun boutique-y luxury kind of thing. But it's nice.
That's not usually where we're staying.
That's not usually where we're staying. But I mean, I don't know. Sometimes for the price, if you're paying like $250 a night, maybe you expect it to be a little bit nicer. It's nice. They're always very comfortable, but they're in super cool places and super worth. Like they're not going to miss. I think that would definitely be a hit for accommodations, if nothing else, but for the location.
Yeah, for sure. And I would say like even if you're staying outside of the park, location would trump any other factor for me.
Yeah.
When we're at a park, we're not really spending a lot of time at our room. Like that's not the kind of trip it is for us where we're like hanging out very much. So, I don't know. I'm okay sleeping in like somewhere that's pretty nasty because we're not really going to be staying there.
We'll stay at a crusty motel that's close.
Yeah.
But it's, another thing to check maybe is like local, the tourism boards or chamber of commerce for the gateway towns. I mean, we say it's because we've worked with a lot of them before. Like I'm thinking specifically of like the stuff we did with Nevada. Like we did a job for Travel Nevada, and they work with local businesses and can recommend like good, affordable, like comfortable accommodations in a lot of these gateway towns. And a lot of it is stuff that, you would definitely pass on TripAdvisor, or like you would not see it off the road and be like, ooh, that's a fun place. But staying in these places, super nice. Like there's really cool,
totally fine,
affordable, locally owned places. And that's like their job. So the tourism boards, like it's their job to find.
They should have a list,
those
like
things.
an amalgamation of
totally,
of these resources, and it would direct you to their local bookings, so like their booking site instead of a.
Yeah, they got good recommendations, especially for smaller parks.
Yeah,
like Great Basin, Baker, Nevada is like a tiny little town, but has some really cool little motels in it. There's some cool stuff. So that's worth checking that out.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope that helps.
Hopefully that's helpful.
Okay. Our quick trip question kind of comes from Jen. She says, we will be in Zion and Bryce and Kanab, Utah area with a 6-year-old. She's a good hiker. What are your favorite hikes at those parks for kids? Thanks in advance. Okay, so starting with Zion, I think Zion Canyon Overlook is a don't miss.
Yep.
It's on the eastern side of Zion when you go after you pass through the tunnel coming from Zion Canyon. Right after you come out of the tunnel is parking for Zion Canyon.
It's really easy to miss it. There's like 4 parking spaces.
There's more than that. It's quite busy. It's very popular because it's a very easy hike for a wonderful payoff because you have already driven up the hill. And so you're just perched up high looking out over Zion Canyon, and it's gorgeous.
It's like a quarter mile, maybe. It's very short.
It's not. I think it's a mile.
Is it a mile?
Yeah, I think it is.
Really?
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like it. It flies by.
It's short, and it's also, there's some cool terrain in the hike itself, which our kids really like, that you're like...
There's like little cavey
going
things.
Around little,
There's a couple of little bridges.
But not anything that I would feel uncomfortable taking small kids on. There are some drop-offs, but it's not like a sheer cliff.
If your kid has hiking experience, it's not a scary, stressful hike.
Yeah, we've taken toddlers on this.
Yeah,
it's fine. So that would be my number one recommendation. I would also recommend doing the Riverside Trail at the very end of Zion Canyon. You drive all the way up. There's a parking lot there. Or you take the shuttle up and get off at the last stop. And then there's just it's a very easy flat trail that goes along the river, just kind of a sandy wash. And that connects to the Narrows hike. The Narrows hike is very, very famous. If you're going to Zion, I'm sure you've seen pictures of it. it's a slot canyon with the river running through it.
Yeah.
Especially during the spring, it will often close to hikers because of flash floods because they're getting runoff. So
you have to hike in the river.
You
That's
have
like
to-
part of what makes it cool.
yeah, so the Narrows hike, you're hiking in the river. If you're going when the weather is cold at all, the water's very cold. So there are a lot of outfitters that will rent you gear,
They'll rent you
poles, and like
waders.
wetsuits and waders,
Yeah.
or whatever the conditions are. If it's hot outside,
It's delightful.
you probably just want to just go and
Sandals and shorts, and
sandals.
it's really fun.
And you can go up it as far as you want. It is tricky. It's a tricky hike because the rocks are slippery and because you're walking in water. So if the current is very strong at all, if there's any risk of like any flash flooding, obviously
They shut it
don't
down.
do it. Having poles is great for the Narrows. And with kids, it would mostly just be a footing issue. But where you're saying that your daughter's a good hiker, I think it's worth going up for as far as you want because it is just out and back. So you can.
And the Narrows is permitted now. Like if you actually want to do the Narrows hike, isn't that permitted now?
I don't think so.
Maybe it's not. I don't know. Don't quote me on that.
I think it's just Angel's Landing that's permitted.
Oh, okay. If it's not,
We'll
the
check.
the river trail. Yeah, check.
The river trail is definitely not
The river trail is
permitted.
not, and the river trail is just like a nice nature. It's like I'm pretty sure a lot of it is wheelchair accessible. Like it's nice.
Yeah, it's sand. Yeah. There's paved parts of the river trail.
Mhm.
There's also sandy parts, so that would be tricky with a chair.
Yeah.
And
But you'll hit the end, and then you can get in the river and hike up the canyon.
go as far as you want and as far as you feel comfortable doing. You can also just play in
Yeah.
the river,
Super fun.
which is also super.
If
fun.
it's hot, that's just like a great little kid destination.
Yeah.
Walk up and then splash around in the rocks and stuff.
Yes, Angel's Landing, I would probably not do with kids. I would not do with kids.
Yeah.
We have not done it because we always have our kids with us when we've gone to Zion.
We've also not been able to get. I think the
There
times
weren't
we've gone, we
permits
haven't gotten
when
permits. And
It was really rainy. We've mostly
We
been
had
to Zion
weather
in January.
issues.
Anyway,
there's definitely
whole
a time
thing.
in
It's
which
like,
we would have done this with our children.
yeah.
And in retrospect, maybe that wouldn't have been a good idea.
What
we were
we-
very adventurous with our kids.
Well, I think it would have been fine with our first two kids. What we have now is a
Ugh.
4-year-old that does not have a good sense of personal safety
and also
or
doesn't
boundaries
listen if
and
you tell him
doesn't
to stop.
listen
He's
and
like, wait, what?
won't
What?
stay with you. So I guess like
It depends on the
at
kid.
your own discretion.
Yeah.
Now you need permits for that. But a good alternative is the Watchman Trail, which is a shorter and easier hike, but also has a great it's a tougher hike than Zion Canyon Overlook, and it also has a great view out over the canyon. So that would be a great one to do.
Mhm.
And then my last suggestion for Zion was to do Clear Creek, which is not an official like marked trail. So what you're going to do is when you're driving out the east side, so you're not in Zion Canyon, but you're driving up this road on the east side, Route 9, there will be places to pull off when you see like a dry creek bed with sandy wash. Pull over where there's a good spot to
Just
pull over.
out. And
And
you can ask the rangers about
you
this
can
too.
ask the rangers
They'll tell
about
you
this.
where you can pull off, and
mark it on a map for you so that
Yeah.
it's easier to know what you're looking for.
you can make sure that it's still cool that you hike there, like that they're
Yes. So the main thing is that so you climb down and you can hike along the sandy wash. If you go far enough, there's some petroglyphs there on the rock. There's some canyon walls that you might be near. With the desert hike, the most important thing is that you are not trampling any vegetation, especially cryptobiotic crust. So the reason I feel comfortable recommending Clear Creek widely is because it is a sandy wash, and if you stick to the creek bed, you're not going to be
Yep.
interrupting anything.
It floods every year. There's no
So
damage there.
yeah, so that's a fine thing to do, and not very busy. Good way to get away from crowds. And with kids, I think it's really fun to not really have a destination in particular, to just kind of let them run and
Yeah.
and go and play in the sand if that's something that they enjoy.
And kind of off menu hikes are fun because they're a little more open ended,
Mhm.
and a lot of parks have these. I think that, they all have these sort of like trails that are not maintained, but are still places that the rangers will direct you to, or some parks have.
But you might have to ask. They're not like on the sheet that's
Yeah.
like, here's the hikes.
Yeah, it's like off menu. It's off menu hikes,
Yeah.
And it's a little more fun because you get to wayfind a little bit. You get to kind of pick your trail. It's a little
And the nice thing
more
about Clear Creek is that
adventurous.
it's very obvious where you're going. You can't really get lost because you're in the creek bed. So, so again, like something I feel comfortable recommending in a public forum.
Yeah.
But it's still fun.
But you feel a little adventure-y. You feel like you're getting a little snack of a wilderness experience.
Yeah. If you really want to escape the crowds, Kolob Canyon, which is a different unit within Zion National Park that's not connected to Zion Canyon. There are several hikes there. They have very wide views. It's different for sure. It's beautiful. It's not probably as like as Zion Canyon.
Yeah,
few things are.
You're not like if you want to go like into Kolob Canyons, it involves a long hike. So if you drive into Kolob Canyons, you go to an overlook, and then from there you can hike.
But there's also some cute stuff to do like above the canyon. So
but beautiful views and never crowded like Zion Canyon.
Yeah. So those would be some recommendations for Zion. For Bryce, my recommendation would be to get down into the amphitheater as much as possible with your hikes. If you are doing hikes along the rim, you're mostly just seeing the stuff you can see when you're driving, which is beautiful and very cool. But that's not something I want to like use up my kids' leg muscles on.
Yeah. Do the scenic drive.
And get out at all the overlooks and make sure you hit sunset or sunrise at one of those places. But for your hiking, get down into the amphitheater. We loved the Queen's Garden and Navajo Loop. You can combine the two. When you combine them, it's like almost 3 miles. You go down Wall Street, which is a very iconic like switchback trail down into the Hoodoos. Very popular.
You'll get all the postcard views.
But it's really gorgeous and not a hard hike with kids. There's elevation because you're going down into the amphitheater and back up, obviously.
The trail is really good. It's very heavily trafficked, so it's a very well-built trail.
Yes. Very good. And and we loved it. And I feel like even if you're doing that with smaller kids, there's enough of interest that the elevation is not going to kill them because they will be like, oh, look at these cool things. Yeah. There's Thor's hammer. And
there's like little tunnels and things you go through.
Yeah, little cool peephole windows. And it's very cool and
it's so fun.
Diverse. And so that's a really fun one. And then we also really loved the Fairyland Loop. So this is an 8-mile, it's like 1,900 feet of elevation gain.
This is an all-day hike.
It's big. It's a hard hike. We did not take enough water. That was stupid. You should take enough water.
Take enough water. We ran out at the end.
That was in June. It got very hot. But yeah, I think for a good hiker, for a kid that's a good hiker, this was a varied, really beautiful trail and not nearly as populated as some of the other ones. So to us, that was really worth it. But again, like be prepared. That's a tougher.
Yeah, definitely plan it to take all afternoon. But that hike is like on my top 5 list of my favorite hikes I've ever done. It was just so cool.
It's really, really, really beautiful. For Kanab, you didn't ask about this, but for Kanab, if I could recommend our friend Erica, our internet friend Erica, well, we have met her though, so can we count her as a real friend?
Yeah.
Runs a website called Zion Adventure Photog, is the name of the website. We'll put a link down below. But Erica she's a photographer. She does like outdoor photography for families. And she runs a very great blog about all the things there are to do, especially in the St. George and like Zion and Kanab areas. It's a phenomenal resource. She's a local. She's lived there.
She hikes a ton.
For many years.
Everything.
And so, and she takes photos places. So that's a resource that I look to every time we go to Southern Utah. That's where I get on to look for things. So rather than just like parroting all of the things that she
go check her out
on there, go check out Erica's blog. Yeah. That I think is a really, really great resource.
And if you want someone to follow you and take really cute pictures of your family hiking, she can do that too.
Yeah, she's really good. And she has a little team now too. So
cool.
Yeah, she's killing it. So those are our recommendations for Zion and Bryce. We've had very Utah-centric quick trips recently. Yeah. Next time, I think we're going to be talking about Acadia, though, so we'll hit the East Coast a little bit more.
Good.
Before we move into our main topic, we want to shout out our sponsor, LL Bean.
Yes.
I'm wearing Bean. David's wearing. Well, we mostly only have Bean clothes now.
They clothe us
delightfully. So yeah, Bean is a great sponsor of the National Parks Foundation. Great investors in national parks, and we appreciate their support of this podcast.
Yeah, they're the best.
If you need to get geared up for any summer camping, hiking, any adventures that you're going to be doing, highly recommend LLB.
Yeah. I'm wearing one of their flannels right now, and they make the best flannels.
Best flannels.
The best. I'm a connoisseur of flannels. I have long worn flannels, and Bean's got the best flannels that I've ever owned. They're amazing.
Yeah. Phenomenal. Okay. What are we talking about today, David?
What are we talking about today, Maddie?
We wanted to talk today about a few things. Mainly why we hate flying so much that we would rather spend inordinate amounts of time and money investing in any kind of traveling that will help us to avoid flying.
Yes, this is going to be like a screed against airlines.
Listen, flying is great.
Flying has its place.
In that, it can take you places. It's cool that flying exists. That's great. It's great technology. However, maybe you've noticed flying is not the luxury, classy experience that it used to be.
Flying sucks now. Like real bad.
It's not good. If you are a person that is larger than like 5'2" and like
if you're an American-sized person,
if
flying has not been designed for you.
Airlines are just squeezing people more and more and more.
Oh,
and
man.
I mean, I understand they're trying to be profitable. It's like whatever. But we have flown a lot with our kids. David flies a lot for his job currently internationally. And it is okay. Like we can get through it, and we have tips and stuff on our blog about doing that. But it is not an experience that I seek out.
No.
Like if we have the ability to travel, I don't want to spend time doing that.
No. If there is a road that will take us there, we would rather drive that road. So anything in, that is not divided from us by a body of water, we will drive to rather than fly.
And we for sure prioritize things that we can drive to.
Yeah.
So we have used all of our vacation time and funds on places, for the most part, on places that we could drive. The reasons for that are manifold. Like flying itself is uncomfortable, but it's also the fact that when you have kids, I feel like it is so much simpler to have all of your stuff in a car, and not have to like rig elaborate systems for getting everybody's stuff along with you. It's fine when you need to do it, it's fine. I just feel like it's so much easier to be able to go by car and have the kids in a familiar space.
Definitely.
B, when you get there, you have a car. You have a way to transport yourself, which depending on if you're going to like New York City, a pain.
Having a car would suck.
Most places, wonderful.
Yeah.
So it ends up for us to fly our family of 5 somewhere and then rent a car is very expensive.
It's wildly expensive.
Gas is also expensive. It is always cheaper. When we calculate it out, it is always cheaper for us to drive somewhere.
Yep. 5 airline tickets versus the price of gas. Driving our Suburban, towing a trailer. So it is not a fuel efficient vehicle.
No.
Still cheaper. Still cheaper, and also still less environmental impact than flying a whole bunch of people.
Yeah. I mean, any kind of travel is going to have an environmental impact.
Yeah. Flying is bad though. Flying's pretty gnarly.
Yeah. So the other thing is that when you are flying, you really lack control over your experience.
Oh my gosh. It's the most dehumanizing experience.
It is quite. Okay, I won't say the most dehumanizing experience because there's like war crimes.
There's that. It's the one that I think average folks in the United States experience somewhat regularly.
It's not great. I just if you don't mind driving, I just feel like it's so nice to have your own wheels beneath you, and nobody can just like cancel
Yeah.
your drive.
Yeah.
Or delay your. I mean, we often delay our own drives.
We do.
For just like poor preparation.
but you can't get mad at anyone for that. It's your own thing. But even if the highway closes, you go around. You know, you just have so many more options. You have all the options. You want to stop, you stop. You want to go somewhere else, you go somewhere else.
Totally. So the reason we're sharing this is because when we talk about travel, I think that there are a lot of barriers to entry for especially families who want to begin traveling. And I think that airline travel and then like renting a car and getting a hotel presents many more barriers to travel for people than road tripping does. I
think it's a harder form of travel for sure.
Yeah, I do. It's less flexible. It's just
requires more planning.
It requires a lot of advanced planning. It doesn't allow you to, flex in the same way, which with kids is so vital to having a good experience.
Yep.
I also think it's more worth training your kids to do well in a car than on an airplane, just because you probably in your day-to-day life are in a car a lot more. And I don't know. I think that it's a really valuable skill for kids to be able to be bored in a car for long periods of time, like look out the windows and observe what's around them. I also feel like it gives kids a greater sense of place when they have driven to somewhere than just like gone into a tin can and then arrived there. Again, flying has its place and like it's great when
Flying's
you need
great.
to do it. But
if you only have a week of vacation, burning, 5 days of that getting to and from the place might not be an option.
Burn 5 days. Well,
like if we wanted to go to Acadia, like if we wanted to drive to Acadia,
it does. Oh, right.
If you want to go somewhere far away and you only have a week, then flying really maximizes your time.
I thought you were saying flying would burn 5 days.
No, driving.
We have burned 5 days flying.
We have, but the
Yeah.
I mean, in some situations it makes sense.
Right. Obviously, it's not always possible. No. So along with this, we are also, we prioritize traveling to places that are more local to us.
Yeah. Within a day or two's drive.
Yeah. Which
is a lot of stuff. That's why we live, part of why we live where we do, because we're close to a lot of stuff.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about our current setup and the setups that we've had in the past for road tripping, and why we kind of landed where we are now.
Yeah. This is like if you have dreamed of a bus or a van or an RV, if you're, Googling and sort of reading stuff, this is the episode for you. This is the analysis and the decision-making process we went through.
Yeah, because I guess when we say that road tripping is more accessible, that's true if you just have a car and you can just get in and go to a place. If you want to RV or if you're going to be camping, there are barriers to entry there. And we decided to invest in an RV because even though we could buy many nights at a hotel for the cost of an RV, we feel like we travel a lot more and we prioritize it more because we have the means to do it. We have the trailer there.
Yeah. And the kind of trips we like to take are made easier by having that. So like the question we got before, in and around national parks, hotels are super hit and miss. Tent camping with a bunch of kids is not always something that you feel like emotionally prepared for. And
so like also a lot of gear and things.
It's a lot of gear. It's a lot of work, which is super fun. But if you're wanting to do like longer trips or trips to more remote places, then something like a van or an RV or some way to be able to carry your house with you really starts to make sense financially and just logistically.
It also just, because we bought a trailer, those are the kinds of trips that we take. Those are the kinds of trips that we prioritize. We decided that was a good fit for our family and that it made it a lot easier to travel with kids when we could put them to bed in the same beds every night and there wasn't like a big setup and takedown factor. And the fact that we can sleep in a lot of places that are not campgrounds is really, really helpful. So again, like this is our own thought process on all of it because buying an RV is a big investment. And a lot of people will say that that doesn't make sense because you could stay in a hotel many, 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 many times.
For sure.
It would be difficult to stay in a hotel enough times that you like for the life of your RV that the cost makes sense. But it does change the way that you travel in a way that I feel is really beneficial for our family.
And really the kind of trips that we want to take. Like we have friends that enjoy hiking and visiting national parks and stuff, but are not into camping, like are not super roughing it kind of people and would really rather stay in a hotel. And they don't travel as much. And when they do, that's what they do. And that's what they want to do. But they're not taking long trips or so many trips that it, makes financial sense to buy a trailer or something like that.
The other thing is that David's work is remote. And so having a trailer allows him to work on the road and us to do a lot more traveling than we otherwise could.
We should do another episode on my remote work setup in the trailer.
It's quite elaborate. Like the whole Wi-Fi situation.
Could nerd out about all that stuff.
So when we started out, when we decided, we've always loved road trips. David and I, from the time that we met, I feel like we did a road trip very early on.
Yeah, that's like the foundation of our relationship is like long drives.
One of the first conversations we we decided that we wanted to start a band and do a Great American Truck Stop tour with our band. We just wanted to go along like all the interstates. So maybe we're just weird and
we just like it.
Really like driving.
I love long drives. I just enjoy them. They're meditative. I like it a lot.
And I've gotten more into it over the years. Like that wasn't something that I used to enjoy doing. But now I really, really do. Yeah. Also, I am frequently a passenger. So that makes it, if David's not working, I'm a passenger. So that makes it easier for me.
I feel like there's an alternate timeline where I'm a truck driver. I love the long drives.
Yeah, I looked into long haul trucking for a little while. It's something that I really enjoy. I also just really like how much you see of a place when you're driving in it versus I feel like it just gives you such a great sense of place. Anyway, so we knew that we liked that. And when we decided to visit all the national parks, we knew that it would not be tenable to fly around to them.
This was 2017. There were 59 at the time.
With the kind of trip that we were doing where we wanted to do them all like in one encapsulated trip, it would make zero sense to fly around and do that. So we knew we'd be driving. We knew we wanted to sleep in our vehicle. We looked a little bit at trailers, but we didn't have a towing vehicle. And a towing vehicle is really the major expense when you're talking about trailers. Because you can get a very inexpensive trailer or like a pop-up tent camper or something like that. You can
find cheap used RVs and stuff.
But having a vehicle that can tow that was a horse of a different color.
Yeah.
We also really liked the idea of all of us being in the same space for all of the activities, if that makes sense. Like a vehicle where the drive, like you're driving your home is not attached to the thing that you're driving. It's a different experience than towing something for sure.
And this is like the what is it, a Class C?
Yeah. We bought
it's all the Cruise America RVs. It's the one that's like a van chassis with a big camper thing attached to it.
Yeah, it's a Class C. Often they'll have like a bunk above the cab.
Yeah.
These are the ones that if you're renting from from a major RV rental place, this is the kind of trailer that you'll have, or the kind of vehicle that you'll have.
It's a living room with a steering wheel.
Yeah. So that was a great fit, honestly, for what we were doing. Had we had the money, I probably would have gone with a van. However, at the time, we were not interested in Sprinter vans because they're Mercedes and the parts are expensive and difficult to get, and we knew we'd be in weird places of the country.
So again, this was 2017, and vans now are much more expensive than they were back then. Mm-hmm. And even then, so in 2017, I think they had just released the Ford Transit. So the Ford Transit, the Ram ProMaster, sort of the high roof cargo vans that are made by American manufacturers. And those had just been released a couple of years earlier. And so there really weren't any of them on the used market yet. And so if you wanted one of those, you were buying new. Or if you wanted one that was like in our price range, you were buying a heavily used Mercedes Sprinter van, like over 200,000 miles. and one that like is going to start breaking, and every time it breaks, it's like $1,000.
Yeah, that we just did not want to get into
Yeah.
a Mercedes, and we had family that had worked with like fleets of Mercedes and said their nightmares don't.
My cousin
get a
my cousin had a FedEx route and had many. He actually kind of sold us on the one that we got because he had a bunch of Sprinters that they used as delivery vehicles, and then also had a bunch of GMC, was it the Chevy Express vans? It was like the Ford Econoline, Chevy Express, GMC Savannah. They're all basically very similar. They're just the little cargo vans, the sort of older low roof ones.
Yeah, we're talking long vans.
Yeah. And he loved those. He's like, those were reliable. They're great. They're cheap. When they break, everyone can fix them and everybody has the parts.
And it's inexpensive to fix.
Yeah.
So that was a really high priority for us, having like inexpensive repairs. And also having something we could stand up in. So we didn't want to get a low roof thing, which would have been a cheap way to go, to just have like a bed in the back of like one of those Chevy Express vans.
If you're just a couple, if you don't have kids and you don't care about your interior space as much,
totally
super cheap way to get into it. That's like OG van life.
Yeah.
Is the little like Chevy Astra van, like Econoline vans.
Mm-hmm. So those were all things that were important to us. Also, our kids were 3 and 1 when we started. And so sleep was a really, really, really high priority for us. So we wanted to have a bed that was in place for napping and sleeping, that we didn't have to convert anything. So that was also a factor in deciding to do what we eventually did, which was buy a little shuttle bus that is on a van chassis and build that out. So this used to be a shuttle bus for the city of Tucson?
It was Tempe, Arizona. It was like a public transit bus in Tempe, Arizona.
So it just had seats and like some rails and stuff. We took all of that out. We have a lot of
we gutted it and rebuilt it.
There's a lot of pictures on our blog and stuff of like what we did there. But it had a kitchen, just like passenger seating space, and then in the back we had in the very back a little garage and a little office for David, and then in between was a bedroom with bunks for the kids and a bed for us that was extremely comfortable.
Yeah.
We had a Lisa mattress in there. It was like,
love that bed.
Oh, it was
so
comfy. And then the other thing about that was not only was the bed always in place, but we had blackout blinds so that it got really dark in that area. So it was great for napping and just perfect for what we had at the time.
Yeah. And we built it to be that. And I think that was because when we looked around, sort of in the price range that we had, the options were like those kind of Cruise America type RVs, like get a used one of those, get kind of an older one of those kind of RVs. And all of those were designed for quick weekend trips, short-term stuff. Like they were not designed to live in full time, and usually the quality really reflected that the ones in our price range.
You could live in them full time.
Yeah,
People do.
But usually if you're living full time, you get a nicer one. The ones that were in our price range were pretty cheap. They were not super good, and the layouts weren't really what we needed because we weren't just weekending in it. We were going to live in it for a couple of years. And so that's where we landed on buying a bus, gutting it, and just building out custom exactly what we needed. And we did that. And in retrospect, like how many years are we down the line now? Of like it's 7 years, and it worked really, really well.
It did.
You know, it was really, really good. I think that the parts of that really panned out well for us. I think the layout and the way that we designed the inside worked perfectly. Like, were there features now looking back that I would be like, maybe we, add this or that? Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I would change or have done differently, but the bones of it were perfect. The spaces that were in it were exactly what we needed. And the most important thing was that little Buster, he was a Ford E450. And man, that was just like a bomber vehicle.
Bomb proof.
It was just
holy cow.
It's not one of the. It was a V10. It was the Triton V10 Ford engine. It was a little bus engine. Not known as like one of their super reliable ones, but ours was great, man. We never had any issue with it, and frequently had situations where like it probably should have had issues. Like, pretty sure I like ran it dry on oil. Like, no, it just would do whatever with no complaints. I would drive that thing to the end of the world and back.
Yeah, we weren't super careful about maintenance on the engine stuff
I mean,
starting
we definitely kept up on
out.
it,
We tried,
but we drove a lot.
But we drove a lot. So I
We
think
were
those
driving it a
things like
lot.
snuck up on us more.
Yeah.
Um,
And it was just like, and we would have situations where I'm like, oh, we need an oil change. And then like we wouldn't be anywhere where you could get one for a while, you know? And so Buster just had to flex with it and just really did. And so that I having, you know, friends and family and stuff have mechanical issues with their tow vehicles or with the chassis of their RVs. I every single time would prioritize reliableness and like mechanical soundness of that over just about everything.
and accessibility of parts, like ease of repair.
Oh yeah.
Inexpensiveness.
That's why we own a Suburban now. Like, because they're just like, we drive now an 03 Suburban. And it's, you know, those domestically produced vehicles that they made just millions of, like there are 20 of them in every junkyard in America, and every single, you know, O'Reilly Auto Parts everywhere has got every single part for it. Like, you could go and buy an engine off the shelf for them if you needed to. Like,
if you are going to be road tripping very much at all, I think that is the top thing to prioritize,
100%.
especially if you are living in your vehicle.
Yep.
It is really
Like, with your
hard if it
kids,
breaks down.
like,
Yeah. The one time that Buster did break down was in Grand Junction, Colorado.
yeah.
And
The alternator died.
The alternator died. And it, you know,
It was the one non-standard part on that bus, I think.
Yeah, they had to order something in that was like a whole situation.
Because it was a bus. It had a really beefy electrical system because it was made to run like a bunch of lights and super big air conditioners.
And a wheelchair lift.
A wheelchair lift, yeah.
That we had taken out, but, you know, it was prepped for that. So we ended up having to stay in a hotel for a few nights because we couldn't like sleep in our bus in the shop.
It had the biggest alternator I've ever seen. And it had to be special ordered in from Denver. And
So that was a thing. But like all in all, we drove how many miles in that?
So many. I mean, we lived in him full time for between 18 months, 2 years. And he, we drove everywhere. We drove the length of North America several times.
Mm-hmm.
And
sometimes all at once.
That was the only breakdown we had is when that alternator died. And it was just the end of its service life. And it just needed to be
that
replaced.
was kind of toward the end of our trip.
Yeah. The engine itself was great. And I'm so grateful for that. And that's not always the case with some of these vehicles. Like, you really got to get a good one. You got to do your research. But I assume, like, if you're doing anything close to what we're doing, or if you're doing any sort of long trips, and like, I think like cost savings is important to you at all, then you're probably going to end up fixing your own vehicle at some point. Like, you're going to end up working on it. You're going to end up changing a tire, doing something. And prioritizing having a vehicle where doing that is going to be easy and cheap will pay dividends. Like, you'll be so happy that you did that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So having a Class C like that, where you are driving the same space that you sleep in, you're not towing anything, that was really ideal for a full-time trip like we did.
Totally.
I think that was really great. When we moved back to New York, David's cousin lived in New Jersey, and they were very, 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 very kind to let
Nancy.
us park our
Shout
bus
out to
there
my cousin
for
Nancy.
way too long. They were amazing to let us do that, but there was no way that we could keep a bus like that on the streets of New York City.
No.
We still wanted access to it for other trips, so we didn't sell it right away. We did eventually sell it because we ended up having a third baby. Our other two kids outgrew the bunk spaces that they were in. We would have had to
rebuild it.
Rebuild a lot of things.
Add
There were no longer enough seats for all of us. And we just didn't want to do that, especially because we weren't traveling full time anymore. So it didn't really make sense to have a whole separate huge vehicle for that, where we didn't have our own place to store it.
Yeah.
So then we ended up getting a van because we were like, this will be easier to store and keep on the street. Yeah. We can reiterate the building out process of it, and it's a little bit better gas mileage and not such a situation.
And this is 2019. So fast forward a few years.
So there's more Ford Transits available, which we were committed to. We did not want a Mercedes Sprinter, still don't, would not.
Yeah. Mm-mm. If you can buy a new Sprinter, if you can get a new one, it'll be great. You'll love it.
If you
If
can
you're
buy a
going
new
for-
Sprinter, you're probably not in our like
Yeah, then
core
your
audience. Like your
parameters are different than
you're
ours have
traveling a
been.
different way than we are.
Yeah, but that being said, the Sprinters are really great vehicles if you get them new, because I think for the first 100,000, 200,000 miles, they're really great. They get good gas mileage, although not as good as they say on the sticker from what I've heard from owners.
Mercedes.
But
Then the ProMasters have really low clearance, which is my issue with them.
Yep.
In national parks, and if you're doing any off-roading at all or ever sleeping on like BLM land or anything like that, that clearance is an issue.
Yeah. And we're not like off-roading in Vanessa. Vanessa is the name of our van, the one that we bought and built out. But having a little bit more clearance has been helpful in a lot of situations, particularly like if you're rolling into some BLM land and need to get, through a ditch or something. That has always been nice.
I just didn't want to have to deal with bottoming out.
Yeah. I also had some brand loyalty. After Buster, I liked Ford. Buster was such a good little boy. I was like, oh, I'll buy another Ford.
The other thing is that the Transit has a higher roof, right?
Yeah,
they have
Transit,
a longer body.
Yeah.
I know for sure they have a longer body, and we wanted like the biggest thing we could find.
And the biggest one
got.
The biggest one still is the Sprinter. So the Sprinter has like
is a little
mega
longer.
big. They have an extended wheelbase. Like if you really need the space, Sprinter is the biggest
it's like
option.
a foot, right? It's not like
No, it's quite a bit.
Really?
So it's like the biggest FedEx vans. They have I forget the numbers, but the Transits are available in one wheelbase, and then they are like the tail gets extended when you get the longer ones. Mercedes has an actual longer wheelbase. So it's just a bigger chassis. And those are like, you see the Amazon Prime vans, like big delivery vans. Those are the mega big Mercedes Sprinters. But
so the way we built out Vanessa, and we're still like in process kind of with, like we've iterated on a lot of things with the van, but we put in a second row of seats for our now 3 kids. We put in a hinged bed above the cab and those seats for big kids. We have not put in a kitchen yet. We built a big bed in the back with storage underneath and also a pull-out composting toilet. So it's great for keeping us all in the same area. And again, we had a baby when we were doing a lot of our travel in Vanessa. He just had like a little porta crib that was set up like on the floor of the van, which worked great. Yeah. The van has had some more mechanical issues. Hopefully not anymore. We've like had to replace a lot of belts. It had some radiator.
The cooling system failed in like 5 different ways.
So it hasn't been as reliable of a vehicle, which just probably has more to do with the one that we happened to pick. But
well, this is kind of the trade-off. And this is like the lesson that I've learned from buying used vehicles is that we had an 05. I think Buster was an 05. And it was like it was an 05 E450. Had a V10 engine. This is before they started doing a lot for fuel economy. So it got 10 miles to the gallon all the time. Terrible. But had no issues whatsoever, was rock solid reliable, but you paid more for gas. The newer vehicles like the Transit is a 2015. It has a V6 engine. So a smaller engine. It gets better gas mileage. So it gets between 15 and 20 miles to the gallon, depending on whether you're on the highway. So you're paying half for gas, but it's using a smaller engine. So it basically, this is like the math that happens with all the cars, right? As the cars get newer, they get more fuel efficient. And because of that, the tolerances are tighter. They're just, my experience has been that they're just a little more fragile. Like the things in them, when they work well and are much more efficient, but they do break more often. And that's
like you can't push them as hard.
You can't push them as hard. They break a little bit more often. And again, I'm glad that we got a Ford, and it's one that has had parts that have been pretty readily available, fairly inexpensive. But I have had to do way more mechanical work on Vanessa than I ever had to do on Buster. And Vanessa came to us with fewer miles. It was like, it had lived a different life. Like it wasn't a fleet maintained vehicle like Buster was. So Buster was well maintained in his previous life. Vanessa was like a delivery van for a florist in Jersey City, New Jersey. We had to clean a bunch of like soil out of the back.
There were plants growing in Vanessa
we had
because
to,
there
like,
was so much
really-
soil on the floor that things had just sprouted.
Yeah, we tore it all down and had to vacuum it all out.
And she's very nice now. Like we learned a lot of things in building Buster that we took in. And that was also one of the reasons we wanted to sell Buster, is because we realized that there were just like other ways to do things that we wanted to try from the bones.
And more stuff was available now too. I think that now if you want to convert a van or a bus, there are so many resources available to you now that weren't available before.
Yeah, there's like kits. There's so many products that make it so much easier to do things.
Like when I did Buster, the info that I had was from like YouTube and Reddit and blogs and a lot of stuff that people that frankly really didn't know what they were doing, but were doing it and it was working. And I'm like, well, this is the best advice I've got. So we're going to go with this.
There were a lot of people at the time that were living in vans and selling like an ebook about how they did their conversion.
Oh,
and
tons
now looking back on it, we're like, these guys did not know what they were.
Some people had no clue.
About.
Some were very good. There were a few like...
I feel like some of the ones that we bought were like, this is not good advice.
This is legit.
So...
But basically what's happened in the intervening time is that a bunch of like engineers went and lived their van life fantasies and have published all of that information online now. And so
now there's some really good stuff.
Really good. A lot of them now have started companies and make products. Like you can just buy off the shelf things that we had to go to great lengths to fabricate custom. There's just, it's a very viable thing to do. It's a fun project. I think it's a super fun project.
So if you want to drive around your house and if you want something that's kind of an all-in-one thing, but you don't want like a bus or a Class C or something that's like really large, a van is your best bet. I would say, like looking back on it, now that we've lived on the road a bunch, and now that we're not full-time anymore, I would say that with us, like the smaller your vehicle gets, the less important it is to me to be able to stand up in it. So if I were buying a van now, I would probably want to get one with like kind of a high roof for storage reasons, but not the mega high roof that we have.
Get a mid roof
with the van now. I would get a mid roof, just because you're not like doing the same level of stuff in it that you would be doing in a larger vehicle. And I think that's great. If you're living on the road, like you want to mostly be spending your time outside, right? But you want to have a place that's like safe and comfy to sleep, where you're protected from the elements when you need that. So that's what I would do now looking back, is like get something smaller. I don't think we need as extended of a wheelbase. I don't think we need as high of a roof. But at the time, that is what we were doing, and we've learned a ton from the van. Situation. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think that I mean, you really see like you kind of have to design your own solution for what you're going to be using it for, right? Like I think everything has its place. Buster was great for full-time living and driving and traveling a lot. So like not stopping in any place for too long, for more than a few days. Mm-hmm. Vanessa is really good for like long road trips. She's much more comfortable to drive. She's a more comfortable road trip. Like the newer vehicles just drive nicer. The suspension, the ride's better. Like the stereo's better. It's just a nicer driving experience. So the drives are more enjoyable and more comfortable. But in Vanessa, like we eat out more. Like we're not cooking in the van as much.
We haven't put a van in Vanessa yet. So
a kitchen.
A kitchen. We definitely haven't put a van in it.
No, but we cook. Like we'll cook at campsites. Like we'll cook on a stove, or we'll like, but the trips we're taking are different. So the trips are like vacation and weekend kind of stuff. It's not full time. If we were in it full time, I think we would like the extra space, and we would also like put in some things that it doesn't have right now. But it is the things that I like the most about the van is the size. It's a more manageable vehicle. It's easier to park and drive around. It fits into a normal parking spot a lot better than the bus did. And it is just even to this day, driving the Ford Transit it's just a really, I love the way the cockpit is set up. I love the way it drives. It's a very nice to drive vehicle. And so if you're doing long trips, it's really good. I would rather drive Vanessa than Buster. Buster is like a vibe. Buster is his own thing. He's like, you feel like you're driving a Mad Max vehicle. Like it's a little like wild and rattly and like, which is I love that so much. But Vanessa's quieter. It has a, I can plug my phone into the stereo.
And it feels more like you're driving a regular car versus
Yes.
even if you didn't like build out a bus, but you're talking like a Class C.
The van chassis are nicer to drive,
Yeah.
like the Transits versus the Econolines and stuff.
So that's the situation we're in now. Vanessa's been great for what we have needed.
She took us to many places.
She did. We ended up moving west from New York. We had Vanessa just parked on the streets of the city for a long time. She was broken into more times because
Twice.
she looked like she might have some cool things in her.
Yeah, and
She
someone did steal a
not,
bunch of tools from me out the back.
but they weren't
they
I
weren't
don't
nice
know.
ones.
It
but
was like his grandpa's hammer that his grandpa passed along.
that I
from
was
when
very
he
sad
passed
about.
away.
And then like some Home Depot powered, like some bad Ryobi tools.
So anyway, so I guess you're a little bit more of a target if you're in a van like that because people might think that you have something cool in there that you're. I don't know.
That might have been a New York specific problem.
Probably. But it did allow us to like have that vehicle in the city.
Yeah.
And then we decided to move west, but we decided to do that when the real estate market was completely bananas. So we thought we weren't going to be able to buy a house because we tried, and nobody was accepting our offers.
Yeah. This was the fall of 2020.
Yeah, it was a bananas time to be trying to buy a house in our area and in many, many areas. Anyway, so after a certain number of failed offers that we put in on houses, we decided that we would just live in the van full time. But the space is not enough for a person who's working full time and 3 homeschooling kids.
Yep.
So we decided to buy a trailer that we could tow with our van.
Yeah.
So we'd have 2 separate living spaces. We did that. We bought an Airstream Base Camp, the 20-foot one. We love the setup of it.
Great trailer.
It's a great layout. It's a great trailer. And the reason we went with Airstream primarily is because we really liked the layout and we know that they hold their value better than any other RV out there.
Yep.
So we wanted
They're overpriced, but they continue to stay overpriced on the used market.
They do. And we probably should do a whole separate episode about Airstream and
we should do a review of our base camp.
the mythology of Airstream.
Lots to
because
love.
it's bananas.
Lots to not love.
And they're better looking than most RVs.
They're super
by
cute.
a mile. But anyway, so we bought this base camp because we were like, well, we know that it'll probably hold its value no matter what happens. And we didn't want to get into something that was really expensive that was just gonna.
Yeah.
So
And
we
wanted
bought
something
that.
nice. We didn't want to get like an old used one. I think at this point, I had a job. Like when we were living in Buster, I was doing freelance work, and the income was not what it is
Yeah,
now.
the finances were better. So we were trying to be smart about it, but we had a little bit more to put into it too.
Yeah.
So we had sold Buster, so we had that money from selling Buster available to us. So that was our plan, and then we ended up before we got the trailer because Airstream had a very long wait time for getting new trailers. We ended up getting a house.
Yeah.
So at this point in time, we have a trailer, a van, and a house. We basically have 3 living spaces. We could live in any of them comfortably.
We had a surplus.
But now we just have 3.
A surplus of living spaces.
We have too many. So we have done many trips where we towed Trevor, our Airstream trailer, with our van, Vanessa. That worked really well when our baby was baby.
Oh yeah.
Now all of our kids can sleep in the same space. Also, now we're going on shorter trips where David is not trying to work as much. We're going on shorter trips where he can take the time off instead of having to work on the road. Because of those things, we really no longer need 2 separate living spaces.
Yep.
So
Enter Molly, our Suburban,
enter Molly, our Suburban, which is
we now tow Trevor with.
a better tow vehicle, has more towing capacity. The van did fine, but
it can tow it, but it was pushing the edge of the capacity. And again, newer, it's just there's more fragile. And I was always just thinking, I'm like this is within the specs, but I can tell that it's working hard.
and we just didn't need that extensive of a setup anymore. Like that.
No.
That's a 20-foot van plus a 20-foot trailer.
We were
It's
like
just-
a road train.
It was too much.
Too much.
It
But
was too much.
it was really good for some things. Like I think that the trips that was really good for, what we would do is we would drive, and then we would park, and we would unhitch, and I would work in the trailer during the day.
And I could take the van.
Yeah.
Having the van meant that I could still give the baby a nap. We still had like a place to hang out if we needed to stop anywhere. So that was different from having just like a
It was pretty ideal.
vehicle. So that was really, really
was
great
awesome.
for a time.
Came at a cost. Like,
It's-
you're hauling
currently-
around a lot of crap.
You are. Currently, we just don't need that much
Yeah.
vehicle anymore.
Mostly because we don't have a napping baby anymore.
hmm So
That's the main difference.
So we are looking to very soon here finish building out Vanessa and then
Yeah, we're getting ready to
parting
sell
ways.
Vanessa.
We're getting ready to sell Vanessa if you're interested.
Yeah, if you're interested, DM us.
So right now, what we have is a trailer with a tow vehicle. And what I really like about our current set, it's taken us a long time to get here in the podcast and in life.
Yeah, it's a journey.
It's a
been a
journey.
journey.
I feel like we've been following some people that have lived on the road for a long time who have also iterated on vehicles a lot. I feel like this is a common theme for a lot of people, and especially families, it feels like,
Yeah.
to be changing up your road situation quite a bit. And I have seen other people get feedback that's like, we really loved this thing that you built. Why did you sell it and get this other thing? Sometimes something works really well for a specific situation that you're in. And that doesn't mean that you need to hold on to it forever. Some people that we gave birth to are really sad that we sold Buster.
Margie still is sad about it.
Sometimes I'll get messages from people that are like, why did you sell Buster? Buster was so great. It was great. We loved Buster so much. It didn't fit us anymore.
Yeah.
Vanessa has been so great. We don't need that anymore. What we need now is something that we can drive around daily. And a van is not something that I love driving around our town.
And we did
just to get
daily
places.
drive Vanessa for over a year. She was our
Yeah.
primary vehicle because she was the only vehicle we had that had enough seatbelts for everyone. And so if we were
Yep.
going somewhere, we were driving the van, just like to the grocery store.
But that's not something that I love, and it doesn't feel like it makes sense for us now that we have a trailer to tow to have. I think a camper van can be really great for families that have the space and the resources to keep that kind of as like a weekending van or a road tripping van for smaller trips or whatever. Us, we just we don't want to have that many vehicles where like we don't want to have a vehicle that's not being used as a daily driver. And so anyway, so we're iterating, things are changing, our circumstances are changing. I don't personally love towing a vehicle or towing a trailer. However, the advantages are many.
Mm-hmm.
It's really nice to be able to unhitch, and it means that you can go anywhere in a national park if you have a 4-wheel drive vehicle and a trailer, because
That's
you
been
can
really nice.
you can unhitch and go places that we could not go in
Yeah.
our bus. Sometimes there's length restrictions, sometimes there's height restrictions. You'll run into that stuff in the parks. Also, sometimes like we went to Sequoia in January, and it was so nice to be able to leave our trailer at the campground and just take our car up the very wide. Well, actually, our trailer would not have been allowed on that road
Yeah, it was too
that
long.
comes in. But it's so nice not to have to drive the whole situation everywhere you go. That was also something that I loved about Buster, was that wherever we were, we could nap the kids and we could make lunch.
Yep.
Like we always had those things with us. So there's different advantages, but it's nice not to have such a huge vehicle that you're driving around everywhere.
And when we were in Buster, we didn't stay in campgrounds as much. We stay in campgrounds a lot more now than we ever did. In Buster, it was a lot of Walmart. It was a lot of BLM. It
yeah,
was
we
a lot
couldn't
of, like,
afford at the time to sleep in a
rest
campground
stops.
every night because we were living on the road full time.
Yeah. We camped for free almost always, whenever possible.
So $20 a night now feels great because we're only out for like a week at a time. But if
Yep.
it's every single night of your life,
That sucks.
It adds up.
Yep.
So also like when we're sleeping at Walmart's now and we're moving between the car and the trailer, I don't love that as much as just like everybody can eat breakfast and get ready in one space and then we just sit in our seats and take off. Like, I don't know.
It's super slick.
There haven't been a lot of sketchy situations but the kids do have to like walk back and forth in a parking lot, and the dog does, and it's
I mean, we never stay anywhere unsafe, but it's very
it's just different.
it's just nice being all kind of in one spot was really nice for the kind of experiences that we were having.
But at this point, like where we're not full time on the road, it just makes so much more sense to have a separate trailer that contains all of the travel stuff and then just have a car that is normal to drive around town, but that can also tow that trailer.
Yeah.
So that's why we landed where we are. We talked a little bit about at the beginning about how much we love having invested in a setup that allows us to be able to travel in the way that works well for us, which is driving, which we love, deciding things last minute, which we love, showing up for people after they've had a baby, but having our own space, like close to their house so that we can be there when they need us, but not be there when we would be in their space. Like things like that. Not that comes up all the time, but it's come up a couple times.
Yeah.
And we've been so grateful that we could just go and David could work where we were and it was fine.
That's been has been also some of my favorite things about the current setup we have. I think that, and again, we'll do another episode about my work setup because that was a big reason why we chose the trailer that we did, is because it could convert really well to an office space and also still be multi-use. But that means that we can spur of the moment go for weekends, we can go for family, we can go and I can take my office with me in a way that's like actually real and productive. Like I can sit down and have like a full normal work day. I'm not like...
You're not perched like on a van seat.
Exactly.
Which you've done
which I have done
and
did for a long time.
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable. And I think that like, we'll do another episode on the work thing because I have so many thoughts and maybe some of you find yourself in this situation too, or maybe this is something that you're thinking about trying to maybe, travel for a summer or, travel like longer term while still keeping a job. A lot of people now are getting called back to office. I think remote work, the sort of great experiment, a lot of the people that tried it out are now kind of, it's being undone for them. But for those that are still sticking around or people that tried it, love it, and now never want to go back, making that work in a sustainable way is a real trick. And when you can make it work, it's pretty great. Like there are trade-offs, there's costs to it, but it's let me do a lot of things that I have really loved and has been just a wonderful addition to our family, I think.
Totally. Yeah. Absolutely. So I guess the upshot of all of this is that we have discovered that investing in a way that makes travel easy for you or that makes outdoor activities, camping, road tripping, whatever your priority is, easier for you and more sustainable will mean that you will do it so much more often. Yep. And that to us is worth so much. Obviously, it is also a great privilege to be able to try these different things and to even be able to get into this at all. But if that's a situation that you're in and it's something that you want to prioritize, I can't speak highly enough of getting a setup that, even if it's not going to work for you like 5 years down the road, that works well for you now so that you can live the way that you want to be living in a sustainable way. For us, like if we have to book a hotel to go somewhere, we just won't go because it just feels like too much. Yeah. I don't know what it is. But if we can jump in the car and hitch up the trailer and go somewhere, like we're doing stuff all the time because that feels for us like that feels so much simpler.
Yeah.
And we can just also like stop on the road and get groceries and cook for ourselves and not have to be like there's other cost savings involved in having your own setup.
Yeah. So. And I think that it's very easy, like, I don't know, if you're listening to this and you're in the place that I have been as I've been sort of researching all these things and like planning and trying to figure out what you need, it is, I don't know, it's there's just a lot out there now. A lot of people trying to sell you a lot of stuff. There's a lot of gear. There's a lot of things. And a lot of it's great. A lot of it's very useful. There's a lot of things available now that I wish that I had earlier. But it, like all things gear, simple's better. Like if I'm having to spend a whole lot of money on it and it's not something essential, I have found that it's usually not worth it. Like the things that we have spent money on, the places where we have invested have been like essential stuff, and then everything else, it's been more like, to find the cheapest, find what's going to work for now, find something that's going to get the job done. Mm-hmm. And And also a lot of other, a lot of resources available now. Like my cousin, that the guy that owned the FedEx route now, converts Suburbans into little campers, and there's a lot of people like him that are doing really great affordable stuff. Like if you just want something that's going to get you out, something that's going to open up new possibilities for you travel wise and do it in a really affordable way. There's a lot of stuff like that available now.
Yeah.
It's easy to think that you have to spend, $100,000 on a big old RV in order for this to ever be fun for you, and totally not true.
Absolutely not.
You can do it. You can do it cheap. You can do it. I think the important part is just really sitting down and getting clear about what matters and what you need. You got to design the solution for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I think more people should get like Ford Econoline vans instead of like tall roof, like Transits or whatever. Because for most people, just being able to sleep in it and not have to like set up a tent every time you go somewhere could be worth it. And then you don't have to have something that you can like hang out in all the time.
Yeah.
I think sometimes like Instagram and other platforms that have really popularized road life show like these very wonderful looking setups. You really don't need it because you're mostly going to be outside, hopefully.
Yeah.
And so for us, like having a very comfortable place to sleep is a really, really high priority. It's why we don't usually tent camp, although that can be done very comfortably. But with little kids, like that's just not something that we super duper enjoy.
Our kids are bad at sleeping, and so
sleep is
tent camping usually doesn't go super well.
Sleep is a big priority for us. Flexibility and like where we can park and sleep is a big priority for us. Again, you can't set up a tent in a Walmart parking lot. Not having to plan everything is a high priority for us. So for all of these reasons, we've landed where we have, and I feel like we've just done so much more traveling than we would have had we tried to. I don't know. Had we tried to like fly and stay in hotels, for sure.
100%. We never would have been able to afford it.
Had we tried to tent camp, had we been like, we don't need anything, we can just tent camp, I don't think we would do it as much.
If that's you, kudos. Like maybe we would have just really gotten like pro tent campers.
we have a friend that lived on the road for a long time, just camping every night with her family. Remember Kaisa? They did that for a long time.
Yeah.
And that's really amazing and incredible. And
if
people
that's you, do it.
So what David was saying, figure out what's a priority to you. Figure out what you're probably going to do, not like what ideal version of you would do. Figure out like, what would me today, what would it take for me to want to go like do this trip right now?
Don't buy like a pair of pants that you have to lose 10 pounds to fit into,
Right. Like don't set yourself up for your ideal situation if you're not in your ideal situation right now.
Exactly.
And it's okay to switch things up a lot. I think many people, like the RV market is hopping, the van market is hopping. If you like, you're not stuck with what you decide forever. But yeah, I just think if you really love camping but don't want to like always be needing to pitch a tent and like figure out everything, it's so nice to have a little trailer.
It's been good for us.
I really like it.
I like it.
Anyway.
We like it.
Thanks for going on this journey with us.
It's been a real journey. Obviously, we have thoughts. Hopefully some of this was useful. This is one of the things about which we could probably talk forever, just about all the little details, little nitpicky little nuances and decisions and things.
This is, though, the conversation that before we started doing any kind of road tripping, this is the conversation that I wanted to listen in on, I think.
For real, though, yeah. And
it's really hard to figure out what the best thing is.
This is the content I wish I had.
And the thing is, there's probably not a one best thing.
No, there's not.
You got to try it out and figure out what you like.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Anyways, guys, hopefully that was helpful. Congratulations if you've lasted this long with us.
Thank you so much for listening and for joining us. Thank you to LL Bean, our sponsor. And send us all of your questions that you want us to answer on here. Send us your trip parameters. We'll help you plan those trips.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next week.
Yeah.